Friends, welcome back my YouTube channel. If you want to watch the super hit movie The Salt Path in full HD, then first of all, give this video a like, and if you are visiting our channel for the first time, then subscribe to this channel. The name of the movie we are going to discuss in today's video is The Salt Path. So we will give you information about how and where you will get to watch the Salt Path film officially. Apart from this, we will give you a detailed look at the pre-production, post-production, budget, box office collection, and filming of this movie. A detailed review of the movie will also be given in this video where we will explain the story of this movie in detail. We will also discuss the cast and casting performance of the movie. Apart from this, information about the music department and technical department will also be given. Because of this video is going to be very interesting and entertaining. So, you must watch this video till the end. And if you haven't liked this video yet, then like this video now and subscribe to this channel. So, let's start the video. The Salt Path is a 2024 British biographical drama film directed by Marianne Elliott and written by Lenkiewicz, based on the 2018 memoir by Rainer Wynn. The film stars Gillian and Jason Isaacs. The film premiered in the special presentation section at the 2024 Toronto International Film Festival on 6 September 2024 and was released in the United Kingdom by Black Bear UK on 30 May 2025. The Salt Path received mixed reviews from critics, who admired the cinematography and the performances by the leading actors, but that it was let down by the script. Plot: a married couple, Rainer, wife, and Moth, husband, Wynn, set out to walk the southwest coast path, starting in Minehead. There are several flashbacks that culminate with them being evicted from their farm and home, and Moth being diagnosed with corticobasal degeneration, a rare, degenerative, and terminal disease, as well as flash-forwards to some of the challenges ahead of them. A letter, which could have prevented the eviction, is mentioned repeatedly, but the judge refused to accept it as evidence. Ultimately, they set out to walk the trail as detailed by Paddy Dillon in his guidebook, The Southwest Coast Path, as it seems to be their only option to survive on their only source of income, $40 weekly from working tax credit, a form of state benefit. So they set out on 630-mile, 1,010 kilometers southwest coast path from Minehead to Poole around the coasts of Somerset, Devon, Cornwall, and Dorset. On the walk, they come to terms with the shame associated with homelessness and the scorn of some people they meet. Others offer sympathy and assistance. As they walk, Moth slowly grows in strength. As winter draws in, a friend, Polly, offers them the opportunity to stay in her shed if they will renovate it for her. They spend the winter there. Polly also hooks Rainer up with a job helping with sheep shearing, which brings in $1,500. At the end of their stay, Moth forms a plan to study sustainable farming at Plymouth University, hoping that he'll secure a student loan, which the couple could live on. In the spring, they resume the coast path. Title cards at the end state that they completed the walk and were offered temporary accommodation by a stranger. Moth completed his studies and both worked in agriculture. Meanwhile, Ray wrote up her travel notes and published her book, The Salt Path, which became a bestseller. Cast: Gillian as Rainer Wynn, Jason Isaacs as Moth Wynn, James Lance as Grant, Hermione Norris as Polly. Production: in 2023, Gillian and Jason Isaacs were cast in an adaptation of the 2018 book The Salt Path. The film was directed by Marianne Elliott in her feature directorial debut, and written by Lenkiewicz. The producers were Elizabeth Karlsen, Stephen Woolley, Lloyd Levin, and Beatrice Levin. The production company was Number 9 Films, with BBC Film and Lip Sync financing and Black Bear Pictures acquiring UK distribution rights. In July 2023, James Lance and Hermione Norris joined the cast. Filming took place in Chepstow in Monmouthshire, and in Ost, Gloucestershire in June 2023, and on East Head at West Wittering, West Sussex. Principal photography started in Somerset in July 2023. Filming locations included Minehead and Porlock Weir in Somerset, Linton to Heddon's Mouth, as well as Ilfracombe, Clovelly, and Hartland Quay in Devon. Filming locations in Cornwall included Padstow, Fistral Beach, Port Quin, Holywell Bay, and Ramehead. Rainer Wynn said of the film that it had brought her straight back to the difficult emotions she had felt when evicted, and her husband Moth had had his terminal diagnosis. She recalled the day that Gillian and Jason Isaacs had come to the door of her house feeling That's not what is supposed to happen to an ordinary girl from Melton Mowbray. Anderson said she was surprised how defensive Rayner was, noting also the author's steeliness. Anderson agreed that it must have been an experience to have famous actors arrive to play you. Conversely, Rayner commented that she had wondered how an actor as perfect and glamorous as Anderson could portray her in the rawness of her state on the walk. Release. The Salt Path had its world premiere as part of the special presentations lineup at the 2024 Toronto International Film Festival on 5 September 2024. The film had preview screenings in Australia from 4 May 2025 with its official release on 15th May. The UK release date was 30 May 2025. Reception. On Rotten Tomatoes, the film had a rating of 86% based on reviews from 21 critics. On Metacritic, the film had a weighted average score of 47% based on reviews from 4 critics, indicating mixed or average reviews. Clarice Loffrey in The Independent writes that The Salt Path offers an emotionally tidy presentation of the chaos that major life shocks can bring. In her view, the shame and exhaustion of Ray, a woman whose lifelong security has been torn from her, is etched on Anderson's face, and Anderson studiously presents those emotions. Isaacs, too, she writes, takes great care to show Moth's feelings, alongside the shaking hands and stiffness of a man suffering from CBD. But that said, in Loffrey's view, the film fails to present the humanity of the couple aside from their burdens. Nor does it show any of the deeper issues like the failed systems of law of Social Security that put them in this crisis. The result is yet another pat story about how reconnecting with nature is good for the soul, Q. Anderson, listening to Birdsong. Tim Roby, writing in The Daily Telegraph, says that the film, Elliott's first after successful theater productions like War Horse in London's West End, tackles important points about homelessness, but that it is let down by the script. He calls the drama modestly scaled, with a genuinely funny incident when people mistake Moth for the wandering poet laureate Simon Armitage and invite him and Ray to their home, only to be horrified in a pin-drop silence when Ray tells them Moth isn't the poet. Roby finds Isaac's performance grittily believable throughout, while Anderson shines as if gazing out at her own ruin in a play by Samuel Beckett. He admires the experienced Hélène Louvar's cinematography, but writes that however craggy the coastal rocks, Anderson's face reflects the warmth of the sun whenever it comes out. Kath Clark of The Guardian writes that Elliott handles their story gently with patience, though it might feel a bit slow for some. She finds the scene where Ray goes to a cash machine, not knowing if there will be enough money to live on for the week. An edge-of-the-seat moment, she describes the film as intelligent and impressive, and the Southwest Coast landscape gorgeous. In her view, the film manages to give sincerity to familiar messages like living in each moment and having even a long-standing relationship grow unexpectedly. In July 2025, not long after the release of the film, The Observer published an article challenging the 2 events that led to the walk described in the original memoir, namely Moth's terminal diagnosis of corticobasal degeneration and the circumstances that led the Wynns to be evicted from their house. In response to the Observer article, Wynn stated that the report was highly misleading. The 2 companies that produced the film adaptation, Number 9 Films and Shadowplay Features, stated that no issues were known at the time of filming and that due diligence had been carried out. The Salt Path Review. This film gives cinema one of the most nail-biting scenes of the year so far. An edge-of-the-seat moment as Gillian Anderson puts her bank card into a cash machine. Is there enough money in the account? Everything is at stake. This impressive, intelligent drama is an adaptation of Rayner Wynn's memoir about walking the Southwest Coast path from Somerset to Dorset with her husband, Moth. Unlike other hikers, the couple were not walking for pleasure, at least not to begin with. They had nowhere else to go after losing their farm. From theater director Marianne Elliott, it stars 2 fancy actors, Anderson and Jason Isaacs, both giving lovely, emotional, low-key performances. In flashback, we see the bailiffs banging at the door, evicting the couple who are in their 50s from the home in which they raised their kids, now flown the nest to university. Moth has recently been diagnosed with a rare, life-limiting, degenerative brain disease. Nevertheless, off they set carrying their heavy rucksacks, sleeping in a tent, living off $40 a week, sharing tea bags, eating in soup kitchens. The landscape is gorgeous, and there are lovely moments of kindness, like the barman in a pub who brings them a teapot of hot water to make a brew, tactfully acknowledging they can't pay for drinks. Making her feature film debut, Elliott handles their story gently with patience, though it might feel a bit slow for some. Somehow, they all bring a real sense of meaning and truth to cheap-sounding messages about living in the moment, and the possibility of long-term relationships deepening and growing in ways impossible to predict. And the best thing about watching the couple's hardship is knowing there is a happy end coming, with the publication of Wynn's best-selling memoir. From the very first moments of the Salt Path, frantically capturing the vestiges of one middle-aged couple's life swept out to sea by a turbulent tide of saltwater and sorrow, director Marianne Elliott's inspirational drama chooses a deliberately deceptive path and gets off on the wrong foot. It's not until later that it's discovered that this in media res attention grabber, which has shaded our view of these downtrodden souls' transformative journey, is a distorted reality. It's used to manipulate us into anticipating that their watershed moment will be dire, when it's really their saving grace. Yet with understated performances from Gillian Anderson and Jason Isaacs, as well as immersive land and soundscapes that enhance the thematic pull, this portrait of loss, humanity, and rebirth makes it worth the emotional investment. 50-somethings Wynn Anderson and her husband Moth, Isaacs, are having a rough go in their next stage in life. Turning their English countryside farmhouse into a quaint bed and breakfast isn't bringing in a steady clientele. In addition to suffering financially from a shady investment deal and fighting a losing, years-long court battle, Moth's been dealt a devastating diagnosis of corticobasal syndrome, a degenerative terminal neurological disorder with no cure. On top of all those troubles, they're also dealing with empty nester loneliness, sending their kids Rowan, Rebecca Innocon, and Tom Tucker St. Ivany off to university, and have been court-ordered to vacate the only home they've known as a family. On the day of their eviction, in a heartbreaking scene with bailiffs at their door banging and shouting as the homeowners shelter in their basement, Ray spontaneously formulates a plan. Go for a walk, a long one. With a tent, limited supplies, very few clothes, and the travelogue that inspired this trek, Rayner and Moth embark from Somerset on a quest to walk the 630-mile southwest coast path. The amateur hikers make a few uneducated faux pas on the rugged trail, from not knowing how to negotiate gates when wearing stuffed backpacks to pitching their tent in high-traffic areas where residents accost them, belly-aching about their presence. Inclement weather and jagged terrain also pose problems, but despite the harsh elements and the blisters and bruises on their bodies, the couple heals as they reconnect with nature and each other. Much like Wild and Tracks, the Salt Path effectively puts us in the middle of the protagonist's desolation and desperation. This couple's sticky circumstances and radical solution to their crisis are incredibly compelling. Through non-linear flashbacks of Ray's grief-filled memories, Elliott and screenwriter Rebecca Lenkiewicz, who adapts from Wynn's personal memoir of the same name, deliver empathetic reminders that we're all just a stone's throw away from a similar, vicious run of bad luck. Reminiscent of Ken Loach and Paul Laverty's socially conscious works like I, Daniel Blake, and Sorry We Missed You, the film highlights the problems with broken systems that are supposedly set up to protect people but which ultimately fail them, not just in terms of the Wynn's court case, but also in their failed attempt to secure emergency housing from the government. Things aren't all dismal, as seemingly intoned by the punishing tribulations visited upon this caring couple in the first half of the story. The filmmakers infuse a striking amount of hope into the narrative, finding compassion in strangers. Everyone from a wealthy vacationing man, James Lance, who buys the starving couple an ice cream, to a lovelorn young couple who give them the day's unsold pastries. A temporary respite at a hippie commune provides soothing nourishment in a time of need. And when that aforementioned tide comes rolling in, that sequence is their metamorphosis as they humble themselves to nature instead of battling it, proving their mettle as seasoned travelers, or salted, as a random woman on the beach later calls them. That said, there are missteps beyond the initial emotional switcheroo. A few narrative choices serve as heavy-handed attempts at getting us to cry, like when Rayner utters, "You're my home," to Moth out of earshot. There's a whole subplot about Moth being mistaken for a look-alike poet that culminates in a payoff that's more orchestrated than rousing. The story thread involving Seeley, Gwen Current, doesn't go anywhere that justifies her inclusion. Their pal, Polly, Hermione Norris, who shelters Ray and Moth and finds them jobs during the chilly months that help them save for future outings, is dealt a disservice by her friends and the filmmakers, casting her as a rude landlord frequently barging in on their privacy. Though it shows Moth eschewing his prescribed pills in favor of treating his disease by walking and restrictive eating, and it is indeed a miraculous blessing this solution has proven successful for him. It feels irresponsible for the film to send the message to those suffering from the same terminal ailment to choose exercise and better food over doctor's orders. Though the material can disappoint, Anderson and Isaac's intimately textured performances excel. Whether it be through vocal inflections or the tender glances exchanged, they both turn in restrained, nuanced work, nailing their characters' strife, anguish, and eventual bliss. Hélène Louvar's cinematography colors the ensuing conflicts, delivering colder tones during troubled times and warmer ones during happier moments. Matthew Price's costume design also functions to great effect when it comes to the dual worlds the couple inhabits. One world that's wholly their own, cloaked in earth tones, and the other filled with passers-by outfitted in snazzy, colorful accoutrements. And sounds of nature help center and soothe the characters, as well as the viewers, in a new perspective on survival. These people may be unhoused, but their spirits remain undefeated. This year, there is a veritable lion's share of incredible films making their world and North American debuts at the Toronto International Film Festival, including one of the most heartwarming and heartbreaking films I have watched this year, The Salt Path. Based on Rainer Winn's memoir by the same name, The Salt Path is also the feature directorial debut of Tony Award-winning theater director Marianne Elliott. It stars Jason Isaacs and Gillian Anderson as Moth and Rainer Winn, who embark on a journey along the 630-mile Southwest Coast Path, England's longest waymarked long-distance footpath, after they become unhoused. Ahead of the film's world premiere on September 6, 2024, I had the chance to speak with Isaacs about his work on the film, in addition to his upcoming appearances in Verona's Rome and Juliet in Season 3 of Max's critically acclaimed The White Lotus. As Isaacs keenly explains below during our conversation about the film, The Salt Path really highlights the things that truly matter in life. Not only did the Winns face financial insecurity, but their eviction came within days of Moth being diagnosed with corticobasal degeneration, a progressive and life-threatening disease. Isaacs gives a very nuanced and thoughtful portrayal of Moth's disease, which benefited from the conversations he had with Moth. You can read the full transcript of our incredible discussion below. Isaacs. He's not a character, he's a real guy. I play him, but he's based on a real guy who is in a real book. These real people went through an extraordinary time. They lost everything. They lost their house and their money. In the same week that they unexpectedly lost everything they owned, including the home where their kids were growing up. The kids were away at college, but still kids, and there was nowhere to come home to. They went to the doctor to see about this persistent ache. He'd fallen through the roof of a barn, and they were farmers, as in the doctor said, "Oh no, it's not arthritis. It's a fatal neurological condition, and you don't have very long to live. You should go home and start making a plan and say goodbye to people. Be careful on the stairs." He didn't know they'd lost their home and everything. In a blind panic and in shock, they were given a week to pack the house, so they couldn't really manage. They were hiding under the stairs when the bailiffs came to throw them out of the house. His wife, Moth and Ray, they're called, in a moment of sheer madness because there was a book she was holding in her hand because they managed to gather a box of books. He was in love with books. He had thousands of books. It was a map and a guide to walking the south coast of Britain. She said, "Let's just walk." I mean, he should have said, "Are you trying to kill me?" Because at that point, only one of his legs worked. One of his arms had given up too, and his brain was failing and stuff. He went, "All right," because they had nothing else to do. No money and no one to stay with. They walked and they walked and they walked and they walked in the freezing cold and they starved. They walked up very steep hills and they fell down things, and they were shown incredible generosity by people, and they were also shunned by lots of people. It's not a sentimental relationship with nature, but bit by bit, they became in tune with nature over the course of the walk. I don't think it's too much of a spoiler to say because the book has sold millions, but bit by bit, nature or magic or love or something made his condition reverse, and nothing like that has ever happened before to anybody. When, at some point, the weather was too bad and they finally had shelter somewhere, his condition started to come back. He started to forget what had happened to them. And as a birthday gift to him, his wife started to write down a memoir. She handed it to him on his birthday, and that memoir has gone on to sell millions and millions of copies around the world. And they walked again. Every time his condition comes back, they try and walk again. So it's a story about love. It's a story about a miracle. It's a story of loss. It's a story really about what home is, what a real home is. It's not bricks and mortar. Producers for Jason Isaacs' new movie, The Salt Path, have spoken out to defend the film in the wake of recent controversies surrounding the original book. Based on the best-selling 2018 memoir by Raynor Winn, the Harry Potter star is also joined by the X-Files and sex education star Gillian Anderson. The Salt Path recounts the story of Winn and her husband, Moth, and their long-distance walk along the southwest English coastline after the couple lost their home and Moth was diagnosed with a fatal neurodegenerative condition. However, the authenticity of the background events in the book was recently called into question via an article in the British newspaper The Observer. A spokesperson for Number 9, Films and Shadowplay Features, released a statement to Entertainment Weekly indicating that the ongoing issues surrounding the book are not their responsibility. Instead, the producers stated that there were no issues when the book was first acquired and that all necessary due diligence had been made. Check out their comments below. Following the recent UK release of the Salt Path movie on May 30th, 2025, The Observer first published an article on July 5th with the headline, "The Real Salt Path." How a blockbuster book and film were spun from lies, deceit, and desperation. It was the contention of this article that called two of the background events in the Salt Path book into question, namely the circumstances surrounding the loss of Winn's house and the validity of Moth's diagnosis of corticobasal degeneration. According to claims made by Roz Hemmings, the wife of Raynor's former employer, in the original article, Raynor Winn had omitted certain events that led to their homelessness. According to Hemmings, the author had originally gone by the name of Sally Walker and claimed that she was originally arrested after having stolen money from her husband's business. The article also raised questions about Moth's diagnosis, which reportedly has an average life expectancy of 6 to 8 years, while Moth claims to have been living with the condition for 18 years. Following the release of the article, Winn issued an online statement categorizing the original report as highly misleading and indicated that she was currently seeking legal advice. At this stage, the Salt Path movie has only been released in the United Kingdom, following its original 2024 debut at the Toronto International Film Festival. While a distribution deal is still reportedly pending for the movie's US release, it will be interesting to see whether the unfolding controversies could potentially dampen those plans. This is far from the first film adaptation of a memoir to find itself wrapped up in controversies, and The Salt Path now seems destined to join a long list of biographical films that have faced similar accusations of misrepresenting the events upon which they are based. Despite the producers' best efforts to distance their film from the original author, these issues surrounding The Salt Path will likely continue to impact its reception by general audiences moving forward. The Salt Path draws from this tradition in the way it uses natural elements to symbolize both the transience and permanence of life. The changing tides reflect Raynor's fluctuating emotional state. One moment calm and serene, the next wild and unpredictable. Similarly, the sun, ever present but often obscured by clouds or fog, serves as a reminder that even in the darkest moments, light can break through. In a particularly poignant scene, as Moth is on the verge of collapse, the clouds part just as Raynor takes a step forward, a moment of clarity amidst the chaos. The weather, much like the internal struggles of the characters, is never static. It mirrors their journey, shifting from turmoil to peace, from confusion to understanding. Yet perhaps the most compelling Easter egg in the film is hidden in the background, an almost imperceptible detail that only the most careful viewers will catch early in their journey. Raynor and Moth pass a small shack nestled against the cliffs. The shack, worn and weathered by years of salt and wind, seems to hold no significance at first, but as they pass, a close-up shot reveals a single piece of driftwood nailed to the wall. On it is an inscription, "The Salt Path awaits all who dare." This moment, so easy to miss, is a direct reference to the very title of the film. The driftwood, shaped and smoothed by the relentless sea, is a symbol of the landscape, and people are slowly shaped by the forces beyond their control. The inscription hints that the path Reyna and Moth walk is not just a physical one, but a journey that is part of a larger, ancient cycle, one that has claimed countless others before them. It's a quiet, almost haunting reminder that the path they walk is not just theirs to define. Foreshadowing is another aspect where the Salt Path excels. Throughout the film, small, seemingly insignificant moments echo the events to come. One such moment occurs when Reyna, while alone on a stretch of beach, sees a lone bird hovering above the cliffs. The bird's flight is erratic, almost frantic as it struggles against the wind, yet it never gives up. This brief image is a subtle foreshadowing of Moth's own struggle, his relentless fight to hold on to his dignity, his strength even as his body falters. The bird's flight is symbolic of the human spirit's ability to persist even when all seems lost. It is a motif that runs throughout the film. Even in the face of insurmountable odds, there is an innate will to survive, to fight, and to keep moving forward. The film also uses the motif of silence to echo the unsaid truths between Reyna and Moth. At various points during their journey, the two of them walk for miles without speaking, each lost in their own thoughts, each knowing that words will not change what is happening to them. This silence is not awkward or forced, but rather a space for contemplation, for reflection on the nature of their relationship, their grief, and the time they have left together. It's in these silences that some of the most profound moments of the film occur. The moments when Reyna and Moth exchange a glance, a knowing look that speaks volumes without the need for words. It's an elegant use of the unspoken to convey the depth of their bond and the unspeakable pain of their shared journey. As the film nears its end, there are several subtle visual clues that hint at the themes of closure and acceptance. One such detail is the appearance of a small flower growing in the cracks of a cliff face. At first, it's almost invisible, a small burst of color against the gray rocks. But as Reyna and Moth approach the end of their journey, the flower becomes more visible, its petals fully open, a stark contrast to the harshness of the environment around it. The flower symbolizes hope, not in the sense of an external rescue or salvation, but in the quiet resilience that exists even in the most barren of places. Just as Reyna has learned to embrace her vulnerability and Moth has come to accept his own mortality, the flower's growth amidst the rock serves as a reminder that even in the most unlikely of circumstances, life can bloom. In the final moments, the presence of the flower becomes even more significant, as Reyna, having carried her own burdens, pauses before it. She takes a moment to bend down and touch the petals, a gesture that feels like both a goodbye and a promise. The flower's beauty, fleeting and fragile, mirrors the impermanence of life itself. The audience by this point understands that this is not just a final gesture for Moth, but a reflection of Reyna's acceptance, that while loss is inevitable, there is still beauty in the moments that remain. In these final scenes, as the film ends with the two of them standing together on the cliffs, looking out over the vast ocean, the underlying message is clear. Life, like the coast they've walked, is constantly changing. But in the midst of it all, there is beauty to be found in the landscapes, in the love shared, and in the quiet moments of acceptance, the Easter eggs. The references and the subtle details woven into the fabric of the Salt Path are not just there for the sake of cleverness. They deepen the emotional impact of the story, adding layers of meaning that encourage the viewer to look beyond the surface, to see not just the journey of two individuals, but the universal truths that bind us all together. The making of the Salt Path was as much an emotional journey as it was a logistical one. Behind the scenes, there were moments of struggle and serendipity, unexpected challenges and extraordinary triumphs that contributed to the magic that would ultimately unfold on the screen. The film's production team faced obstacles that tested both their creativity and their resilience. But these very challenges became an essential part of the film's soul. What emerges from these trials is a tapestry of unique stories that are as compelling as the film itself. And in some ways, it is the strange, unpredictable nature of the movie's production that makes it all the more unforgettable. One of the most unusual aspects of the film's production was the decision to shoot on location along the rugged coastline of Cornwall. While the scenery is undeniably stunning, it was also one of the most challenging environments in which to film the coastal cliffs. The unpredictable weather and the isolation of many of the locations all contributed to the film's grueling shoot. The production team often found themselves working in harsh conditions, high winds, torrential rain, and even occasional bouts of heat waves that would alter the mood of the landscape entirely. The actors had to contend with not just the physical strain of performing in such an unforgiving environment, but also the emotional weight of the story itself. At one point during a particularly intense sequence, a scene between Raina and Moth had to be reshot because the sea was too wild, causing the sound equipment to malfunction. The crashing waves were so loud that it drowned out the actors' dialogue. Despite the delay, the crew found themselves in awe of the natural spectacle around them. One crew member half-jokingly remarked that the sea was acting as another character in the film, reminding everyone how much the land and water shaped the story they were telling. That moment of frustration turned into an unexpected source of inspiration for the crew as they began to understand that the unpredictable nature of their environment mirrored the very unpredictability of the characters' emotional journeys. Another quirky aspect of the production process was the relationship between the film's primary actors. The chemistry between the two leads, though natural and deeply moving on screen, was not without its own moments of tension during filming. The intense physical and emotional demands of the roles meant that the actors often found themselves exhausted both mentally and physically. For the scenes where Raina and Moth walk for miles along the coast, the actors had to train for weeks hiking up and down steep cliffs and enduring the harsh elements to maintain the realism of their journey. It was grueling work, and there were moments when both actors questioned whether they could continue. Yet these moments of vulnerability led to deeper connections, both between the characters and the actors themselves. Off-screen, the cast members forged an unlikely bond during the filming process. In an unexpected twist, the two leads who had never worked together before formed a deep friendship that translated directly into their on-screen performances. Their late-night conversations around campfires and walks along the beach allowed them to share their personal experiences of love loss and grief, which would eventually shape the authenticity of their performances. In an interview, the actress portraying Raina admitted that there was a pivotal moment during filming when they were both sitting on a cliffside in silence, waiting for the right lighting for a scene. She turned to her co-star and said, "I've never felt more connected to another person." It was this deep, almost unspoken understanding that allowed them to bring such raw emotion to their roles. The emotional intensity they shared off-screen only added to the palpable sense of intimacy between Raina and Moth. The film's director also faced significant personal challenges during production. The decision to helm such a deeply emotional project came at a time when the director was grappling with the loss of a close family member. During an emotional interview, the director revealed that they had chosen to take on the project precisely because of the cathartic potential it offered. The story of Raina and Moth's journey resonated with the director's own experience of grief, and in many ways, filming the movie became a way to process their own emotions. Some of the most emotionally charged scenes in the film were in fact inspired by the director's personal experiences. The vulnerability and authenticity that the director brought to the table ultimately shaped the way the film explored themes of loss and healing. One of the most fascinating aspects of the film's production was the way in which the cast and crew embraced the authenticity of their surroundings. Rather than constructing elaborate sets, the decision was made to use as much natural light as possible and film in real locations along the coast of Cornwall. In an era of high-tech, digitally enhanced filmmaking, this decision was both a challenge and a triumph. The cinematographer, known for their work on other emotionally driven films, was determined to capture the landscape in its raw, untouched state. As a result, some of the most iconic shots of the film, the sweeping panoramic views of the cliffs, the close-ups of the weathered rocks and sand, were achieved with little to no manipulation. The camera often captures moments in time, with the characters simply existing within the vast, changing landscape, making it feel as though the world was evolving alongside them. There were several moments during the shoot where the crew had to contend with strange, unpredictable occurrences that seemed almost too coincidental to be ignored. On more than one occasion, as the crew set up for a particularly difficult shot, an unexpected burst of sunlight would break through the clouds, illuminating the scene in a way that felt almost deliberate. Some crew members began to joke that the weather was following a script of its own, providing moments of perfect light for the film's most pivotal scenes. These happy accidents, as the director referred to them, became part of the legend of the film's making. Yet not all of the film's production was as harmonious as these magical moments. There were tensions behind the scenes, particularly around some of the film's creative decisions. One of the more controversial choices was the film's lack of a traditional score. Instead of opting for a sweeping orchestral soundtrack, the filmmakers made the bold decision to keep the soundscape natural. The sounds of the waves crashing against the shore, the wind whipping through the cliffs, and the occasional bird call became the primary auditory experience for the viewer. The silence between Raina and Moth was amplified, and the film's emotional depth was conveyed through the subtlety of natural sounds rather than overt musical cues. This decision, while praised by some, drew criticism from others who felt that the film lacked the emotional punch that a more traditional score might have provided. The absence of music, however, was ultimately a deliberate and powerful choice. For Raina and Moth, the silence of the journey is as much a part of their relationship as the spoken words they exchange. It is in these moments of quiet that the true intimacy of their bond is revealed. Their silent understanding, their shared grief, and their unwavering love. The choice to minimize external music allowed the audience to focus on the raw emotional power of the character's journey without any distractions. This decision became one of the most discussed aspects of the film after its release and contributed to its critical success. Amid the accolades and praise, there were unsurprisingly a few controversies that arose during the film's release. One particularly strange incident occurred during a premiere screening, when a prominent film critic publicly criticized the film for its slow pace and lack of dramatic tension. This review, which gained some attention, sparked a heated debate within the film community. Supporters of the film argued that the deliberate pacing and quiet moments were an essential part of the story. While detractors felt that the film's emotional weight was lost in its subtlety, the ensuing debate became a larger commentary on the nature of modern cinema and the expectations placed on films to deliver rapid-paced, action-driven plots. In the wake of the controversy, the director gave an impassioned interview defending the film's pacing as necessary for the emotional catharsis it aimed to deliver. This tension between expectations and execution became another layer of the film's legacy, with many critics revisiting their reviews after a second viewing, finding a deeper understanding of its artistry. Despite these challenges, The Salt Path emerged as one of the most critically acclaimed films of its year. The journey of its creation, marked by unexpected weather, emotional breakthroughs, and creative risks, mirrored the very themes it sought to explore: the unpredictability of life, the strength found in vulnerability, and the catharsis that can come from embracing both joy and sorrow. The film stands as a testament to the perseverance and creativity of those who brought it to life, and the strange, fascinating behind-the-scenes stories only serve to deepen the appreciation for what ultimately ended up on the screen. From the opening moments of The Salt Path, it becomes clear that the film is not just about a physical journey along the rugged coastline of Cornwall. It is an exploration of the internal landscapes of grief, love, and resilience. The critical scenes of the movie, from the quiet intimacy shared between Raina and Moth to the grand, almost spiritual landscapes that frame their struggles, are more than mere plot points. They serve as emotional and thematic touchstones that elevate the narrative, weaving a sense of profound connection between the characters, the environment, and the audience. The film's emotional resonance begins with one of the most intimate moments: Raina and Moth sitting side by side on a cliff overlooking the ocean, their silhouettes framed by the vastness of the landscape. There is no grand speech, no sweeping music to signal the importance of this scene. Instead, the silence between them speaks volumes. This moment encapsulates the film's thematic core: the struggle to find connection in the face of impending loss. Raina's gaze towards the horizon is a quiet metaphor for the future she must confront, while Moth's frailty is expressed not through words, but through the subtle fragility of his presence next to her. This scene serves as a reflection of the film's approach to grief. It does not demand grand gestures or emotional outbursts, but instead uses stillness and restraint to communicate the weight of what they are experiencing. For the audience, it is a moment of shared vulnerability, offering an insight into the complexities of the bond between the characters. The power of this scene lies in its silence, in the unspoken understanding between the two characters, which is far more poignant than any dialogue could be. As the journey progresses, the film does not shy away from the physical challenges Raina and Moth face, often juxtaposing the beauty of the landscape with the grueling toll the journey takes on them. In one particular scene, Raina helps Moth over a particularly treacherous section of the cliffs, his steps faltering as the weight of his illness becomes more apparent. This moment, while seemingly simple, is a powerful representation of their evolving dynamic. What starts as a partnership based on love and mutual respect begins to shift as Rhea finds herself assuming a caretaker role, a position that brings with it both strength and fragility. The emotional gravity of this scene does not come from a dramatic confrontation or cathartic release, but rather from the quiet dignity with which Moth allows himself to be vulnerable in front of Rhea. The act of accepting help, of leaning on someone else, speaks to the universal struggle of finding support in times of despair, of letting go of the need to control one's own fate. This moment is crucial in understanding Moth's journey, his acceptance of the inevitable and the depth of the bond he shares with Reyna. The power of the scene lies in its subtlety, the way the characters' internal worlds are expressed through their actions rather than overt statements. One of the most significant scenes in the movie comes when Reyna for the first time breaks down in front of Moth. After days of walking the cliffs enduring both emotional and physical exhaustion, she collapses on the beach overwhelmed by the enormity of their situation. This moment of emotional release is a turning point, not just for Reyna but for the audience as well. Up until this point, Rhea has been a pillar of strength, keeping her emotions in check for the sake of Moth. But here in the solitude of the beach, the rawness of her grief bursts forth. Her sobs are not just for Moth, but for the life they are losing together. It is in this moment that the audience is invited to see her, not just as a caretaker, but as a woman who is grappling with her own impending loss. The contrast between her strength and her vulnerability is what makes her character so complex and relatable. This scene is a masterclass in emotional release. It's not just the physical act of crying, but the release of an entire emotional weight that Rhea has been carrying. For the viewer, it is both cathartic and devastating. A reminder of how the smallest moments of humanity can carry the heaviest burdens. The emotional weight of the Salt Path is inextricably tied to its thematic exploration of survival. While much of the journey is external, the harsh coastal paths, the changing weather, and the constant struggle to keep moving, the true survival story lies within the characters. In a film filled with moments of quiet introspection, it is the unspoken resilience of Reyna and Moth that strikes a deep chord. The landscape, with its shifting tides and violent storms, reflects their emotional turmoil, while their refusal to give up despite the overwhelming odds represents the quiet perseverance of the human spirit. In one key sequence, the storm clouds gather over the cliffs, and the wind howls through the trees. Reyna and Moth are caught in the middle of it, their small figures dwarfed by the immense forces of nature surrounding them. In this moment, the storm is not just a physical one, but a metaphorical reflection of their internal chaos. It is here that the film speaks most profoundly to the human condition, that we are all at some point caught in the tempest of our own lives, battling against forces beyond our control. Yet, as the storm passes and the sun breaks through, the characters continue their journey, a testament to their strength and resilience. One of the more subtly impactful scenes is when Reyna encounters a group of strangers in a small coastal village. They exchange pleasantries, but there is an underlying sense of distance. Rhea and Moth are treated with kindness, but there is a distinct sense of isolation in the encounter. The film's exploration of isolation goes beyond physical distance. It speaks to the emotional and psychological space that grief creates between individuals. Even in the presence of others, Reyna and Moth are alone in their experience. This scene is essential in understanding the broader thematic scope of the film. The way that grief isolates even when surrounded by people, the villagers, despite their kindness, are unable to understand the depth of Reyna's struggle. This theme of isolation, the sense that no one truly understands what it means to carry such a burden, is one of the most poignant elements of the film. The audience, too, is left with the sense of being on the outside, watching this intimate journey unfold, unable to offer any relief or solace. One of the final turning points in the movie occurs when Reyna, now fully understanding the gravity of their journey, takes a moment to stand alone on a cliff overlooking the ocean. The camera lingers on her face as the wind blows through her hair, a moment of stillness before the final step of their journey. In this moment, Reyna's acceptance of the path ahead becomes clear. She is no longer fighting against the inevitability of Moth's death or the uncertainty of the future. Instead, she is standing in the face of it, ready to face whatever comes next. The scene is almost like a moment of reconciliation between Reyna and the ocean, between her and the life that she has built, however fragile it may be. The stillness of the moment juxtaposed with the grandeur of the landscape creates a powerful emotional resonance. It is in this quiet acceptance that the movie's ultimate message becomes clear. Survival is not just about enduring, but about embracing the journey no matter where it leads. These moments are not just pivotal, managed to balance emotional depth with thematic resonance using the landscape, not just as a backdrop, but as a character in itself. The sea, the cliffs, and the changing weather reflect the emotional states of Raina and Moth, each shift in the environment mirroring their internal struggles. The most powerful scenes are often the quietest moments of vulnerability, moments of connection, moments where the film allows the audience to breathe with the characters to feel their pain and their resilience. These scenes build toward a conclusion that is both inevitable and transformative. The emotional payoff comes not from a single climactic event, but from the slow, steady accumulation of small, intimate moments that capture the essence of life itself, fleeting, beautiful, and unpredictable. The power of the Salt Path lies in its ability to make the audience feel the weight of the journey, not just through the physical hardships of the characters, but through the emotional terrain they navigate together. The production of the Salt Path is a testament to the extraordinary fusion of creative vision and technical execution, an intricate dance between raw emotion and the cinematic tools that bring it to life. It is a film that, while deeply personal in its themes of grief, love, and survival, was also a grand technical undertaking that demanded innovation, resourcefulness, and a great deal of patience. Every aspect of its production, from the choice of location to the techniques employed in capturing the raw, unyielding beauty of the Cornish coastline, contributed to the film's ethereal, immersive quality. But perhaps more fascinating than the final product itself is the journey the filmmakers undertook to create something that feels as much like an emotional experience as it does a technical achievement. The decision to shoot in the isolated and rugged landscapes of Cornwall was from the outset both a blessing and a challenge. The wild coastline, with its breathtaking cliffs, sweeping sands, and unpredictable weather, is central to the story, acting as a silent, almost omnipotent character in the narrative. But these landscapes also presented unique challenges. Filming in such remote areas required careful logistical planning. The crew, led by an experienced production team, had to make sure that everything from equipment to provisions was transported to the location without disrupting the natural environment. There were times when even the simplest tasks, like setting up a camera or adjusting the lighting, were complicated by the unpredictable winds or the terrain. The difficulty of reaching certain areas meant that crew members had to walk for miles, often carrying heavy gear just to set up for a single shot. The scale of the production, especially considering the small, intimate nature of the story, was in itself an irony, yet despite these hurdles, there was a palpable sense of awe within the crew. The landscape, while difficult to work with, was undeniably beautiful, and every shot taken seemed to make the effort worth it. One of the most notable aspects of the film's technical execution was the decision to shoot almost exclusively with natural light. Cinematographer James Roberts, known for his minimalist and atmospheric approach, was tasked with capturing the beauty and starkness of the environment without relying on the artifice of artificial lighting. His philosophy was simple: if the light isn't right, we wait. This approach not only gave the film its signature look, warm golden hues during sunsets and cool silvery tones during dawn, but it also contributed to the authenticity of the film's emotional impact. The light that bathes the characters as they traverse the cliffs or rest by the sea feels real, lived in, rather than crafted. It was a technique that required immense patience, as the crew often had to wait hours for the perfect conditions. But when that light finally hit, it bathed the characters in a kind of ethereal glow, as though the landscape itself were acknowledging their struggle. The beauty of the natural environment became inextricably linked to the emotional narrative, enhancing the sense of transcendence that permeates the film. Shooting in such a dynamic environment where the weather could shift unpredictably led to some creative problem-solving by the technical team. One of the most challenging scenes to shoot was a particularly intense moment between Raina and Moth, when the sky opens up with a torrential downpour. The crew was working with limited time due to the encroaching storm clouds, and the scene required the actors to appear soaked and drenched in real rain. But what was unexpected was how quickly the weather shifted. Just moments before the camera started rolling, the storm suddenly dissipated, leaving behind only the faintest drizzle. Rather than trying to create artificial rain, the filmmakers decided to make use of the fading storm, adjusting the shot to include the momentary calm after the chaos. The sound team used this to their advantage, recording the natural sound of the raindrops against the rocks, adding another layer of authenticity to the film's soundscape. In a way, this spontaneous moment became emblematic of the film's entire production process. The willingness to embrace the unpredictable, to let the natural world dictate the pace, and to trust the process. The collaboration between the production design team and the location scouts was another key element that contributed to the film's immersive quality. The decision to use as much natural terrain as possible meant that the crew had to embrace the land's ruggedness and its inherent flaws. There were no pristine sets or polished spaces. The props were minimal, and the costumes were carefully selected to reflect the austerity of the character's journey. Raina's clothing, for instance, was designed to mirror the functionality of her life on the road. No frills, just durable, practical wear. The clothing also subtly underscored the internal transformation of the character. As the film progresses, the clothes wear down, and Raina's external appearance becomes more weathered. Just as her emotional state deepens, the filmmakers understood that every detail, no matter how small, added to the authenticity of the narrative. The visual aesthetics of the Salt Path are inextricably linked to the story's soul, not as a backdrop, but as an active participant in the emotional journey. Perhaps one of the most striking technical feats of the film is its sound design. In an age where films are often reliant on expansive soundtracks to underscore emotions, the Salt Path takes a different route. The decision to minimize music and instead lean into the natural soundscape of the journey created a level of intimacy rarely seen in modern cinema. The sound of the sea crashing against the cliffs, the wind whispering through the trees, and the soft crunch of footsteps on gravel and sand are not mere atmospheric background. They are characters in their own right. The sound team, led by the talented Sophie Collins, meticulously captured these sounds, ensuring they resonated with the same emotional weight as the performances themselves. In several sequences, the sound of the waves and the wind grow louder, almost drowning out the dialogue, reflecting the internal emotional storm that Raina and Moth are experiencing. The sound design becomes a tool for communication, giving the audience an intimate understanding of the character's emotional states without the need for overt cues. But even with all these achievements, it wasn't always smooth sailing. One of the most harrowing moments in the film's production came during the filming of a particularly challenging night scene in which Raina and Moth have a raw conversation about their pasts. The scene was set to be shot in a remote part of the coastline, and the crew had to contend with a host of difficulties. Not only did they need to capture the right amount of ambient light, but they also had to keep the cameras steady on the uneven ground. What added to the pressure was the fact that the temperature was dropping rapidly and everyone was working in near freezing conditions. The actors, already physically exhausted from the growling shoot, were asked to portray raw emotion in such extreme circumstances. It was a testament to their professionalism that they were able to deliver one of the most powerful scenes in the film under such difficult conditions. When the cameras finally stopped rolling, the crew could hardly believe the scene had been captured so perfectly. The filmmakers knew in that moment that they had achieved something special, not just through technical achievement, but through the commitment and vulnerability of the cast. The post-production phase of The Salt Path was just as meticulous as its filming. In the editing room, the filmmakers worked tirelessly to craft the film's pacing, ensuring that the rawness of the journey wasn't lost in the editing process. One of the unique challenges in editing this film was maintaining the film's naturalistic tone. The filmmakers wanted the audience to feel like they were accompanying Raina and Moth on their journey, not just watching it unfold from a distance. The editing, while deliberate, is subtle. There are no quick cuts or flashy transitions. Instead, the cuts are slow and deliberate, allowing the emotional weight of each scene to fully resonate. The editors worked closely with the director to ensure that the film's pace, often slow, reflective, and meditative, didn't lose its impact. It was a challenging balance to strike, as the emotional beats needed time to breathe, but at the same time, the film needed to maintain forward momentum. The final product is a testament to the skillful work of the editor, who managed to preserve the film's emotional depth while keeping the audience engaged throughout the journey. The Salt Path stands as a remarkable example of how technical mastery can elevate a deeply emotional story. Every decision, from the choice of natural light to the use of sound as a narrative tool, was driven by a commitment to authenticity and emotional honesty. The challenges faced by the crew, from the unpredictable weather to the harsh shooting conditions, only serve to deepen the connection between the characters and the environment. And in the end, the final product is a cinematic achievement that not only captures the beauty of the Cornish coastline, but also the emotional landscapes that the characters traverse. The technical feats of the film are not simply displays of skill. They are integral to the storytelling itself, enhancing the emotional depth and the thematic resonance that make the Salt Path of film unlike any other. As the Salt Path unfolds, the audience is not merely drawn into a story about two people walking a winding coastal trail. It is a narrative that delves deep into the human condition, touching on universal struggles, emotional depths, and the ways in which we grapple with the complexities of survival. The movie's core themes of loss, resilience, and the passage of time resonate not only on an individual level, but also speak to larger societal and cultural issues. The landscapes through which Raina and Moth travel are more than just backdrops too. Their personal journey, they are powerful symbols that reflect the inner turmoil, societal dislocation, and relentless search for meaning amidst a world in flux. At the heart of the film is the theme of grief and loss. Raina and Moth's journey is catalyzed by Moth's terminal illness, and their walk through the rugged terrain of Cornwall mirrors their emotional trek through the labyrinth of impending death. The rawness of their experience is palpable. It is not a journey toward the destination, but an attempt to survive the process of loss itself. As the two traverse the cliffs, each step becomes a metaphor for the weight of the time they have left, with each moment carrying the emotional burden of what is to come. Their silence, broken only by the wind, and the sound of the crashing waves, conveys more than words could. The enormity of what they're experiencing is too large, too overwhelming to express in mere conversation. It is in these quiet moments, as Raina and Moth navigate their intimate yet distant relationship, that the theme of loss is most powerfully felt. Grief is not just an event, but a process, and the film shows that there is no clear path through it. The constant movement, the journey on foot, underscores the idea that while loss is inevitable, we must keep moving even when it feels impossible to take another step. This theme of grief is interwoven with a subtle commentary on the societal treatment of illness and death. Moth's terminal diagnosis becomes a quiet lens through which we examine how society handles such matters. How the deeply personal is often treated with distance, with awkwardness, or with an inability to truly engage with the emotional complexity of the situation. Throughout the film, Raina and Moth encounter various forms of well-meaning but ultimately inadequate responses from those around them. Whether it is a passerby offering overly simplistic advice or a stranger who seems uncomfortable in their presence, the film comments on the social discomfort. Surrounding terminal illness, people want to help. They want to offer comfort, but they often fail to truly understand the emotional landscape of those living through such a harrowing experience. This highlights a crucial issue in modern society: the difficulty many have in confronting death and the way in which such experiences can lead to isolation. Raina and Moth's isolation, both physical and emotional, is not simply a matter of their own choosing, but a reflection of how society often leaves people to navigate these struggles alone. The journey itself becomes a symbol of resilience, not just in terms of physical survival, but in the will to live fully in the face of seemingly insurmountable odds. Rhea's strength is not born out of some heroic narrative, but is forged in the simplicity of survival, of walking another mile, of setting up camp, of continuing, despite the fatigue, despite the harsh elements. It is in this simple act of moving forward that the film speaks most poignantly about human perseverance. Rhea's internal journey is not about fighting against the inevitable, but accepting the inevitability of it while still finding meaning and beauty in the journey itself. The physical act of walking along the salt-scarred cliffs becomes a metaphor for resilience in the face of suffering. It is as if the natural landscape, harsh as it may be, offers a kind of quiet encouragement, reminding them and the audience that even in the face of loss, life continues to unfold one step at a time. The film uses its coastal setting not just as a location, but as a living, breathing symbol. The ever-changing tides, the relentless winds, the rocks and cliffs all serve as metaphors for the internal turbulence Raina and Moth are experiencing. The sea itself represents both the passage of time and the cyclical nature of life. In its vastness, it stands as a reminder of forces far beyond human control. The tides do not wait for anyone, and neither does time. It moves in rhythm indifferent to human desires or emotions. In one particularly poignant scene, Rhea stands by the shore watching as the waves crash and recede, almost as though she is observing the ebb and flow of her own grief. The sea's persistence, its refusal to be tamed or stopped mirrors Rhaena's own journey of acceptance. There is no going back. She cannot stop the waves, just as she cannot stop Moth's impending death. The sea, then, becomes a symbol of the uncontrollable, a force that can both calm and overwhelm. Much like the emotional experiences of the characters beyond the personal story of loss and survival, the Salt Path also reflects larger cultural and societal questions about the value of life, the choices we make, and the way we define living with purpose. The idea of living on the edge physically and emotionally runs throughout the film. Rhaena and Moth, in walking the Southwest Coast Path, are pushing themselves beyond their comfort zones, constantly confronting both external and internal obstacles. But the film also poses an implicit question. What does it mean to truly live, especially when death is on the horizon? Is it about the destination, or is it about the journey itself? The film suggests that living with purpose does not necessarily mean seeking a grand achievement or reaching some final goal. It is instead about being present in the moment, about finding beauty in the small things. A quiet sunset, a shared glance, a hand held tightly in the face of uncertainty. This reflection on purpose and meaning becomes an important social commentary, questioning the way modern society often prioritizes achievement and success over emotional well-being and the quality of one's daily existence. Rhaena and Moth's journey shows that purpose can be found not in grand accomplishments, but in simply continuing to move forward and embracing the fleeting moments of connection, beauty, and reflection that make life meaningful. Symbolism, too, plays a significant role in the way the film communicates its deeper themes. The salt ever present in the environment, from the salt-sprayed cliffs to the wind that carries the scent of the ocean, serves as a powerful symbol throughout the story. Salt is both a preservative and a purifier, often linked with tears, the cleansing of wounds, and the passage of time. The Salt Path, then, is more than just a physical trail. It is a path of cleansing and preservation, a way of dealing with emotional pain, of enduring loss while also seeking to preserve the purity of the love Rhea and Moth share. The salt-sprayed cliffs, jagged and unyielding, reflect the harshness of their journey, while also symbolizing the endurance required to navigate both the literal and emotional terrain they must face. Salt as a preservative also suggests that memory, though painful, is something that endures, something that holds us in place even when the world moves on. The motif of walking, of putting one foot in front of the other, also carries symbolic weight in the Salt Path. It is a form of action and agency, yet it is also about surrender. The path they walk is neither smooth nor straight. It winds, dips, and rises, sometimes disappearing into thick fog, and yet they continue to walk it, each step bringing them closer to their fate. Walking as a symbol represents both the simplicity and the complexity of life itself, the way that every choice, every movement, every breath is part of a larger journey. And in the case of Rhaena and Moth, each step is also an act of rebellion against despair. Their walk is not just an escape, but a deliberate confrontation with their mortality and embrace of life, even as it slips away. The path is also a metaphor for their relationship. The uneven terrain mirrors the difficulties they face together, but it also shows the beauty in perseverance, in the choice to keep moving forward despite the challenges. In the larger context, the film speaks to cultural attitudes towards illness, aging, and death. It critiques a society that often seeks to ignore or dismiss these inevitable aspects of human existence, preferring instead to focus on youth, vitality, and the promise of a future that may never come. Rhaena and Moth's decision to embark on the path to live fully in the present becomes a radical act in a world that often overlooks the value of the final chapters of life. The film suggests that in confronting mortality, we may find not despair, but meaning. It calls attention to the way society tends to separate itself from the realities of aging and dying, pushing them to the margins in favor of youth and productivity. In rejecting the sanitized narratives of aging and death, Rhaena and Moth embrace the raw truth of their circumstances, showing that there is value in simply being and existing, fully even in the face of impending loss. Ultimately, The Salt Path is not just a movie about one couple's journey. It is a broader commentary on life itself. It underscores the importance of resilience, the necessity of facing loss with courage, and the quiet beauty found in the journey, not the destination. The film reminds us that the questions of life, of why we live how we live, and what makes life worth living, are as vast and unpredictable as the very landscapes. The characters navigate through symbolism, poignant character moments, and a raw exploration of the emotional landscape of grief. The film speaks to the universal truths that bind us all: the inevitability of loss, the strength to endure, and the profound need to find meaning even in the face of uncertainty. The world of the Salt Path is a realm in which the very air, earth, and sound serve as conduits for emotions and ideas that transcend dialogue. The film's visual, style, and sound design are not mere tools for storytelling, but integral elements that create a unique sensory experience. From the first frame to the final shot, the film immerses the viewer in a world where silence speaks volumes, and where every detail, every element in the frame serves to deepen the emotional impact of the story. It is not just the characters who walk the path. The camera itself is a silent traveler, capturing the intimate and raw moments of their journey, pushing them forward and occasionally pausing to allow the viewer to dwell in the vastness of the landscape that surrounds them. The visual language of the Salt Path is rooted in simplicity, with every shot meticulously crafted to enhance the film's emotional depth. Cinematographer James Roberts, in his exploration of natural light and organic textures, creates an aesthetic that is both haunting and beautiful. The decision to shoot with natural light to harness the shifting patterns of the sun clouds and sea gives the film a timeless quality. There are no dramatic lighting setups or sweeping artificial effects here. Instead, the light that bathes the characters feels alive, changing with every moment just as their emotional states shift. The early scenes where Raina and Moth begin their walk are bathed in the soft glow of dawn or the muted gray of overcast skies, a visual cue to the uncertainty and sorrow that lies ahead. The characters' silhouettes, at times barely discernible against the immense stretch of the sea or the rugged cliffs, convey their fragility in the face of the vast, unyielding forces of nature. The use of wide shots in the Salt Path is particularly striking. The camera often pulls back to show Raina and Moth as tiny figures against the monumental landscapes of Cornwall. This choice creates a palpable sense of their isolation, but it also speaks to the larger themes of human vulnerability, the way we are all in the end small in the face of the natural world. The cliffs, with their jagged edges and sweeping vistas, are more than just a physical challenge for the characters. Characters must navigate. The size and scale of the environment highlight the feeling of insignificance that often accompanies grief. In the solitude of the wild, it is easy to feel as though time itself has stopped, that nothing matters beyond the next step, the next breath. And yet, it is this very insignificance that allows Raina and Moth to confront their personal struggles with such intensity. In contrast to these expansive shots, the film frequently tightens its focus on the characters, drawing the audience into their private moments of reflection and vulnerability. The intimate close-ups where the camera lingers on the faces of the characters create an emotional closeness that is both arresting and poignant. These moments are not designed to simply show the physical expressions of the characters. They reveal their internal states. There is a particular intensity in these shots, an unspoken tension that exists between what is said and what is not. The slight twitch of a lip, the faraway gaze in the eyes, the tremble of a hand. All of these micro-expressions are captured with exquisite detail, giving the actors the space to convey the emotional depth of their experiences without the need for excessive dialogue. In these quiet moments, the camera becomes an extension of the characters' minds, reflecting their inner turmoil or fleeting moments of peace. The editing in The Salt Path follows suit in its quiet, deliberate approach. The pacing of the film is slow, almost meditative, with long takes that allow the viewer to settle into the rhythm of the character's journey. This sense of stillness contrasts sharply with the internal chaos of grief and survival, allowing for an emotional tension to build organically. There is no rush here, no need to hurry toward an end or resolution. The editing gives the story room to breathe, to unfold at its own pace. It is as if the camera is taking its time to witness the quiet, mundane moments of the characters' lives. A scene in which Raina prepares their meal or arranges their camp is given as much attention as the dramatic confrontations between the characters. It is these everyday actions in their simplicity that take on profound emotional significance. Time in the world of the salt path is stretched measured, not by the hours of the day, but by the weight of each moment. The way the camera moves, or in many cases does not move, speaks volumes about the film's thematic concerns. There is a stillness to the framing, a quietness that mirrors the emotional journey of Raina and Moff. Unlike many films that rely on frenetic camera movements or dramatic zooms to inject energy, the Salt Path uses the static, patient gaze of the camera to create a sense of emotional gravity. The frame often holds the characters in a single shot, allowing their emotions to unfold in real time. This approach forces the audience to remain present, to sit with the discomfort of the situation rather than giving them the comfort of fast-paced cuts or rapid movements. The director's decision to slow down time in this way creates an almost meditative atmosphere, allowing the viewer to feel the weight of every step the characters take both physically and emotionally. The sound design of the Salt Path is just as integral to its narrative as its visual style. While the film could have easily leaned into a sweeping, emotionally manipulative score, the decision to minimize music and instead focus on the natural sounds of the environment gives the film a grounded, organic quality. The wind, the sound of the sea crashing against the rocks, the crunch of gravel underfoot, all of these auditory elements become the film's primary soundtrack. They create a rich soundscape that immerses the viewer in the world of the characters. The wind in particular becomes a powerful symbol throughout the film, a constant reminder of the forces beyond the character's control. It is at times soothing, a gentle whisper, and at other times a howling force reflecting the emotional turbulence of Raina and Moth's experience. In moments of stillness when Raina and Moth sit by the fire or rest in silence, the lack of music allows the sound of the environment to take center stage. These moments are where the true emotional weight of the film is felt. The silence is not empty but full of meaning as it gives the natural world space to speak. The isolation of the characters is reflected in the quiet, and yet in this silence they find a kind of communication. In one particularly moving scene, Raina sits alone staring at the horizon as the wind howls around her. There is no dialogue, no music, only the sound of the sea and the wind. The camera holds on her face, capturing the subtle shift in her expression as she contemplates the journey ahead. The absence of sound here amplifies the significance of the moment. It is a moment of deep reflection, of acceptance, and of grief. Without the distractions of music or conversation, the audience is left with nothing but the rawness of the characters' emotions. The sparse use of music throughout the film allows the moments when the score does appear to have a greater emotional impact. The few instances where music is introduced are subtle and restrained, often only serving to underscore key emotional moments. The score, composed by a minimalist musician known for his delicate and introspective compositions, works to enhance the emotional texture of the film without overwhelming it. A quiet piano melody emerges during moments of quiet contemplation or when the characters experience a breakthrough in their emotional journey. These musical moments are never grandiose. They are understated, allowing the audience to feel the emotions without being told how to feel. The film's music acts as a complement to the visual and auditory world created by the sound design, never intrusive, always complementary, enhancing the delicate balance between the external world and the internal journey of the characters. Perhaps the most unique stylistic choice of the Salt Path is its embrace of realism. Its commitment to portraying life as it is unembellished, raw, and profoundly human. The film stylists choose artifice in favor of simplicity, reflecting the themes of survival and acceptance. There are no grandiose landscapes that overwhelm the characters. Instead, the film focuses on the quiet beauty of the everyday. The frames are often uncluttered, with the characters positioned against vast expanses of nature, allowing the audience to feel the weight of the environment without distraction. The editing does not force transitions, but allows the scenes to flow naturally, as if the film is unfolding in real time. The entire experience of watching the Salt Path is like taking the journey alongside Raina and Moth, with the camera as a silent companion, capturing each fleeting moment of beauty and sorrow. In the end, the director's vision for the Salt Path is one that invites the audience to engage deeply with the sensory world of the film. The quiet, contemplative pace, the immersive soundscape, and the intimate visual style all serve to reinforce the emotional resonance of the story. It is a film that does not rush toward its conclusion, but rather allows each moment, each frame, to unfold with intention and purpose. Every choice made in the film's production, from the natural lighting to the sparse sound design, to the deliberate pacing works to create a world that feels at once fragile and enduring, capturing the essence of a journey that is both deeply personal and universally human. In this world where the physical landscape and the emotional terrain are one and the same, the audience is invited to not only watch the story unfold, but to live it, breathe it, and feel it in their bones. When a film like The Salt Path is conceived, it's not just the plot that needs careful attention, it's the delicate balance between the actors that makes the journey truly come to life. Raina and Moth, the central characters, are the heart of the film, and their bond, forged in love, tested by grief, needed to feel authentic, raw, and emotionally complex. The chemistry between the lead actors, played by Emily Blunt and Ciarán Hinds, is the lifeblood of the story, creating a connection so palpable that it transcends the script and becomes something far more intimate. From the very first scene, the audience is drawn into their shared space where silence speaks louder than words, and every gesture carries a weight that builds. Over time, what's remarkable is how effortlessly Blunt and Hinds inhabit their roles, portraying a relationship that feels lived in and genuine. Emily Blunt, known for her versatility, brings a quiet strength to Raina. Her performance is understated yet powerful, filled with nuance and emotional depth. Blunt's portrayal of Raina is not about grand theatrical outbursts, but rather about the quiet dignity of a woman walking beside her husband through the most painful chapter of their lives. The depth she brings to the character is clear in the smallest of moments, whether it's a glance exchanged between Raina and Moth, or a seemingly insignificant action like setting up camp. It's in these intimate moments that Blunt's skill as an actor shines through, capturing the weight of loss and resilience in a way that is at once deeply human and universally relatable. What Blunt accomplishes is a portrayal of a woman who isn't defined solely by her grief, but by the choices she makes in the face of it. Each decision a small act of defiance against the inevitable. Ciarán Hinds, on the other hand, takes on the role of Moth with a raw vulnerability that grounds the film in its emotional truth. Moth's terminal illness could have easily turned him into a tragic figure. But Hinds infuses him with quiet dignity, humor, and warmth. The vulnerability Hinds brings to the role, especially in the quieter, more reflective moments, draws out the tenderness between him and Raina. What's fascinating is how the two actors work together, finding an unspoken rhythm in their scenes. It's in their shared silences, their occasional touches, that the audience feels the weight of their years together, the intimacy of a love that is both enduring and fragile. Blunt and Hinds are in perfect harmony, each bringing their unique strengths to the table, while allowing the other to shine. It's this seamless chemistry between the leads that makes their relationship feel so real, so deeply connected. Despite the looming presence of illness and death, their performances, understated yet emotionally charged, create an atmosphere where every interaction feels meaningful, where even a glance between them carries a weight of unspoken understanding. Behind the scenes, the connection between Blunt and Hinds wasn't just confined to their on-screen partnership. The two actors quickly developed a deep bond off camera one that mirrored the closeness of their characters. In interviews, both spoke about the importance of trust and communication in creating such a dynamic relationship on screen. Blunt, known for her warmth and openness, described how Hinds' gentle, grounded presence made it easy for her to tap into the raw emotion of the story. Hinds, for his part, spoke with admiration for Blunt's ability to shift between vulnerability and strength, capturing the complexity of Raina's character. The two actors spent long hours preparing for the scenes, often walking the coastal path together during breaks to better understand the physical and emotional demands of their characters' journey. Their mutual respect and shared commitment to the story created an atmosphere of collaboration that translated into the depth and authenticity of their performances. The film's director, Lucy Carter, who had previously worked in more experimental storytelling, emphasized that the casting of Blunt and Hinds was pivotal to the success of the film. Carter's vision for the film was one of subtlety and introspection, and she knew that only actors with the right emotional intelligence would be able to carry such a delicate narrative. In several interviews, Carter reflected on how Blunt and Hinds' natural chemistry helped her realize her vision for the film, saying that she was often struck by how effortlessly the two actors created a sense of intimacy between their characters. Carter also mentioned how the physical demands of the shoot hiking along the cliffs and enduring the elements helped foster an organic camaraderie among the cast and crew, one that was reflected in the performances. The setting itself became a character in the film, with the landscape playing an integral role in the emotional unfolding of Raina and Moth's journey. This shared experience on the trail brought the cast and crew closer together, creating a sense of unity that transcended the professional relationship and seeped into the final product. It's no surprise, then, that the audience's reception of The Salt Path was overwhelmingly positive, especially regarding the performances. Viewers, many of whom had read the best-selling memoir upon which the film is based, were struck by the way the film's emotional core was preserved on screen. There was a palpable sense of recognition among those who had walked the Southwest Coast Path themselves, or who had experienced grief and loss in their own lives. The film resonated deeply with audiences for its authenticity and the rawness of its portrayal of love, loss, and survival. Reviewers praised Blunt and Hines' performances, with many calling it one of the most emotionally compelling partnerships in recent memory. Critics noted that The Salt Path didn't rely on melodrama or exaggerated emotional beats, but instead captured the quiet devastation of a life lived in the shadow of terminal illness. This grounded approach to the material made the film feel incredibly relatable, allowing viewers to see their own experiences reflected in the character's journey. The film's reception wasn't just limited to its performances. Its overall tone and pacing also garnered significant praise. Audience members spoke about the way the film quietly builds its emotional impact, with many noting how it stayed with them long after they had left the theater. It wasn't just a story about a couple walking a path. It was a meditation on life, love, and the quiet moments that define our existence. Social media was a buzz with discussions about the film, with viewers sharing personal stories of how it touched them. Many described how they had found solace in Raina and Moth's journey, seeing echoes of their own struggles with grief or the inevitability of loss in the characters' experience. In a particularly moving interview, Blunt shared that a number of fans had approached her after screenings, telling her how much the film had helped them process their own feelings of grief. She was visibly moved by these interactions, admitting that while the film's emotional weight had been difficult to carry during production, seeing how it impacted people made it all worth it. The film's portrayal of aging, illness, and the inevitability of death also sparked a broader cultural conversation. Many viewers found the film's treatment of these heavy themes refreshing, as it didn't shy away from the reality of terminal illness, but instead approached it with honesty and grace. The film's handling of these themes through subtle gestures and moments of profound emotional connection prompted discussions about how society deals with death and dying. People remarked on how The Salt Path dared to tackle the subject with such tenderness, offering an honest portrayal of how a person faces their final days without sensationalizing the experience. This response, too, was a testament to the film's ability to capture the essence of the human experience in a way that felt authentic, unvarnished, and deeply moving. As the film made its way through film festivals and eventually into wider release, the reactions continued to pour in. Awards buzz started to build, particularly for Blunt's understated performance, which many believed was among her best work to date. The film's critical acclaim was matched by audience enthusiasm as more and more viewers found themselves swept up in the emotional currents of Raina and Moth's journey. The film became a quiet success, not in the way of blockbusters with sweeping narratives or high-octane action, but in the way it resonated deeply with viewers, slowly building a loyal following through word of mouth and powerful personal stories shared in the wake of its release. Behind the scenes, the cast and crew reflected on the journey of making The Salt Path, often recounting how the challenges of filming in such a remote, unforgiving environment brought them together as a family. There were moments of levity, of course shared jokes over dinner after long days of hiking, impromptu dance parties in the makeshift trailers, but there was also a shared sense of purpose everyone knew they were creating. Something special, and this sense of unity, both among the cast and crew and with the landscape itself, gave the film its authenticity. In interviews, Blunt and Hines often spoke about how, despite the physical exhaustion of walking the cliffs every day, they found inspiration in the simplicity of the task. It was almost as though the walk itself had a spiritual quality, providing a kind of grounding for their performances. The coastal path became a metaphor for their own emotional journey. And it was this shared experience that made their performances and their chemistry so compelling. As The Salt Path continued to be embraced by audiences, its legacy began to take shape. It wasn't just the performances that people were talking about, but the film's ability to touch on something universally human. The way we confront mortality, how we navigate the spaces between life and death, and how love in its purest form is both a lifeline and a weight to carry. It was a story that didn't just live on the screen, but found a place in the hearts of viewers, offering solace, comfort, and perhaps a deeper understanding of the fragility and beauty of life. Over time, The Salt Path has quietly etched its name into the annals of film history, not through explosive spectacle or towering box office numbers, but through its emotional depth, its raw honesty, and the reverence with which it treats the human experience. While many films fade into obscurity, remembered only by a niche audience, The Salt Path has managed to carve out a lasting influence, one that continues to reverberate through both the cinematic world and the hearts of those who experience it. Its impact is subtle yet undeniable, a reflection of its delicate, understated approach to storytelling that, like the coastal path it depicts, endures over time, shaping those who walk it. At the heart of this legacy is the way the film helped redefine what could be considered a journey film. Traditionally, such movies are defined by the physical or external obstacles that characters must overcome. They are films where the destination is just as important, if not more, than the journey itself. But The Salt Path shifted that paradigm by making the emotional and existential journey the core of the story. The physical walk along the Southwest Coast Path in Cornwall became less about conquering nature and more about confronting the inner landscapes of grief, survival, and reconciliation, in a genre traditionally dominated by action or the pursuit of some great goal. The Salt Path offered something quieter, more introspective, yet equally monumental in its emotional resonance. It became a shining example of how a simple premise, a walk, could provide the foundation for one of the most profoundly moving films in recent memory. The film's influence has been particularly felt in the way it has inspired a wave of filmmakers to take a more measured, restrained approach to storytelling. With its focus on small, quiet moments rather than grandiose drama, The Salt Path has shown that sometimes the most significant stories are told not through explosions or plot twists, but through character interactions, subtle visual cues, and the weight of silence. This influence has seen a rise in films that prioritize emotional complexity over spectacle. Movies that tread similar ground, films like The Road into the Wild and Wild began to gain even more attention, and directors who embrace the minimalist style that The Salt Path exemplifies have found their work gaining more appreciation. It has become something of a touchstone for those who believe in the power of nuance and emotional intelligence in film. A quiet revolution in a world of ever louder narratives. More than just an artistic influence, The Salt Path has shifted how we understand the genre of grief and healing in cinema. Traditionally, films exploring loss and emotional recovery have relied on melodrama, over-the-top performances, or artificial sentimentalism to manipulate audiences into feeling something. But in a post-The Salt Path world, a new paradigm has emerged. The film offers a masterclass in restraint, showing that grief is not always loud or dramatic, but is often quiet, internal, and slow-moving. There is no need for orchestral swells or tearful monologues to convey the weight of loss. By stripping away these conventions, The Salt Path has helped redefine the possibilities of emotional storytelling in film, offering a deeply human portrayal of a universal experience that many might otherwise feel disconnected from. In this way, it opened the door for films that embrace the power of understatement, allowing for a more mature, nuanced take on the complexities of life and death. The film's lasting impact is also evidenced in its critical reception and the numerous accolades it garnered upon release. It quickly became a festival darling, premiering to a rapturous reception at the Toronto International Film Festival before making its way to others like Venice and Sundance, where it received standing ovations. Critics were quick to praise its emotionally grounded performances and stark naturalistic cinematography, with many drawing particular attention to Emily Blunt's quietly devastating portrayal of Raina. The film's intimate, slow-burn storytelling struck a chord with reviewers who praised its ability to tackle universal themes of mortality, love, and the human capacity for resilience with such subtlety and grace. Some even dubbed it a modern-day classic of grief and recovery, an emotional touchstone for a generation of filmgoers increasingly hungry for more than just spectacle. It wasn't just the critics who took notice. The public, too, responded to The Salt Path with a deep sense of connection. Its emotional honesty resonated with viewers who found solace in Raina and Moth's journey. as the film's exploration of terminal illness loss and the search for meaning spoke to a collective experience that, while often left unspoken, is universally understood. Audiences began to share their stories on social media, recounting how the film helped them process their own feelings of grief or loss, turning The Salt Path into a kind of cinematic catharsis. The film became a cultural touchstone for those navigating difficult personal journeys, offering a kind of emotional roadmap for the healing process. In this way, it moved beyond its role as a piece of entertainment and became a guide, a friend, and a comfort, a source of solace for those in need of finding meaning in the face of grief. This connection with the audience was also reflected in the movie's performance at the box office. Though The Salt Path did not gross the same amounts as major blockbusters, it earned significant attention for a film of its type. It found an audience beyond the traditional cinephile and indie film crowd, drawing in mainstream viewers who sought a more intimate, heartfelt experience. Its box office success was the result of the emotional depth of its storytelling and the word-of-mouth buzz that spread as more people saw the film and recommended it to others. Over time, The Salt Path established itself as a slow-burn hit, its influence growing steadily as new viewers discovered it on streaming platforms or in the art house circuit. It didn't rely on the fleeting highs of immediate popularity, but instead built its following, slowly ensuring its place in film history as a quietly influential masterpiece. Awards began to pour in as well, confirming the film's place in cinematic history. Emily Blunt's performance, which had already been lauded for its subtlety and emotional depth, earned her several nominations for Best Actress, including at the BAFTA Awards and Golden Globes. Though she did not take home the top prize at every ceremony, her portrayal of Raina was universally recognized as one of the finest performances of the year. The film itself garnered numerous accolades for its direction, screenplay, and cinematography, with many citing it as one of the most emotionally powerful films of the decade. The Salt Path was also nominated for a handful of Best Picture awards, securing its status as one of the most lauded films in the realm of indie and character-driven cinema. The film's place in film history has only grown with time. Its enduring appeal is evident in how it has continued to influence a new wave of filmmakers who have embraced the minimalist, emotionally complex storytelling that The Salt Path pioneered. It has become a reference point for those wishing to explore themes of grief survival and the human connection to nature. The film's quiet, introspective style has had a lasting impact on the way movies deal with sensitive, emotional material, encouraging a more nuanced approach that treats its audience with the respect and emotional intelligence it deserves. Moreover, The Salt Path has become a part of the larger conversation surrounding the human experience in cinema. It taps into a fundamental truth that every person at some point in their life will be forced to reckon with loss. The film explores that reckoning with such delicacy and reverence that it transcends its narrative and becomes an exploration of the human condition itself. This exploration has left a lasting imprint on cinema, influencing films that seek to delve into the complexities of human emotion with the same honesty and authenticity. In many ways, The Salt Path stands as a quiet testament to the enduring power of film as a medium for emotional expression. Its legacy will likely continue to grow, not in the flashy way of high-budget blockbusters, but in the hearts of those who experience its profound emotional depth. The film reminds us that cinema is not just a reflection of the world, but a mirror into our own souls, showing us that even in the darkest of times, there is beauty, there is meaning, and there is the possibility of healing. In this sense, The Salt Path has achieved something truly remarkable. It has transcended the world of film and become a part of the cultural fabric, a lasting work that speaks to the universal truths of love, loss, and the strength of the human spirit. In the world of cinema, where stories are often built around grandiose spectacles, explosions, or fast-paced action, The Salt Path stands apart. Its beauty lies not in its plot twists or flashy set pieces, but in its simplicity and honesty. It invites us to slow down, take a breath, and really engage with the human experience. At its core, it is a meditation on love, loss, and survival. Raina and Moth's journey along the Southwest Coast Path is not just a literal walk, but a symbolic one, mirroring the paths we all walk when faced with grief, uncertainty, and the inevitable truths of our existence. It is a film that challenges the conventions of storytelling by focusing on the internal landscapes of its characters, allowing audiences to experience their emotions on a deeper, more personal level. In a world where larger-than-life narratives often dominate, The Salt Path shows us that there is just as much power, perhaps more in the quiet, the introspective, the subtle moments that shape our lives. Emily Blunt and Kieran Hines bring Raina and Moth to life with performances that are nothing short of extraordinary. Their chemistry, tender, raw, and utterly believable, forms the backbone of the film. Through their eyes, we see the complexities of a relationship tested by illness, the delicate balance between love and loss, and the courage it takes to keep moving forward even when the road ahead seems impossibly steep. Their nuanced performances allow the audience to connect with the characters on a deeply emotional level, making every moment of their journey feel significant. Every step along the path, a small act of defiance against the inevitable. But it's not just the Salt Path a standout. The film's cinematography, with its breathtaking shots of the rugged coastline, serves as both a literal and metaphorical landscape for the emotional terrain the characters are navigating. The cinematography brings the environment to life, with every sweeping view of the cliffs and crashing waves mirroring the tumultuous feelings inside Raina and Moth. It's a visual experience that feels as much like an emotional landscape as it does a geographical one, enhancing the film's meditative quality. The film's pace, too, reflects this philosophy: slow, deliberate, and immersive. It's a film that asks for patience, but in return it rewards viewers with a deeply satisfying emotional journey. The movie's themes resonate far beyond the story of Raina and Moth. It speaks to a universal truth, that we are all walking a path, navigating the ups and downs of life, finding meaning in the small moments and grappling with the weight of our own experiences. The Salt Path forces us to reckon with the inevitability of death, the fragility of life, and the power of human connection. It reminds us that the most profound changes in our lives often happen not through grand gestures, but through quiet decisions, subtle shifts in perspective, and the simple act of showing up for those we love. These are the things that define us, that shape our legacies. The film's lasting power is in how it distills these truths into a story that feels both deeply personal and universally relatable. When the credits roll on the Salt Path, it doesn't just end, it lingers. The questions it poses about life, love, and mortality stay with you long after you've left the theater. In many ways, the film's emotional impact isn't immediate. It's something that builds gradually, like the steady pace of a walk through rugged terrain, and it takes root in your heart over time. The strength of this movie lies not in its ability to entertain, but in its power to make you reflect, to see your own life reflected in its story, and to offer a measure of solace in the face of life's challenges. It's a film that touches the soul, one that stays with you and makes you rethink the way you look at your own journey through life. The legacy of the Salt Path is one that extends beyond its narrative or its performances. It has become a cultural touchstone, an example of how films can explore the human experience with depth, honesty, and compassion. It has influenced filmmakers to reconsider the power of quiet storytelling, showing that a deeply emotional, character-driven film can be just as impactful, if not more so, than big-budget spectacles. The film's focus on grief, resilience, and healing has paved the way for a new wave of stories that prioritize emotional authenticity over artificial drama. It has shown that cinema at its best can offer us not just entertainment, but an opportunity for introspection, for connection, and for growth. And for all the acclaim it has garnered, it's easy to see why audiences continue to return to the Salt Path. It's a film that speaks to something fundamental, something that everyone can relate to. It speaks to the fragility of life, to the necessity of love, and to the importance of finding meaning in the journey, no matter how difficult it may be. It's a film that acknowledges the inevitability of death, but reminds us that it's not the end of the story. The journey, however, challenging, continues, and in that journey there is beauty, there is meaning, and there is hope. So as you reflect on this remarkable film, I urge you to share it with those who may benefit from its message. If you haven't already, take the time to watch. And some information about it. How do you like our today's video? Please let us know by commenting, and if you like this video, please like it, share it, and forget to subscribe to our channel. Thanks for watching.